Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and I'm taking care of business. Joining me today is Alicia Planincic, who is Manager of Policy and Economics at the Business Council of Alberta. Some news today to share from the Council. 2 new reports have come out regarding the Define the Decade project. Alicia, tell me what that project, first of all, is all about.
Yeah, so Define the Decade is really our big flagship project at the Business Council of Alberta. And the purpose of this project is to define what does a good life look like in Alberta 10 years from now, and how do we actually build that life? So the past 6 or 7 months have been filled with interviewing Albertans, engaging in focus groups with experts, poring over reports to better answer this question. And so as a part of this process, we've been releasing our research in stages leading up to the final report, which will come out in a couple of months.
Okay, let's talk about the reports one by one. The first report, tell me what that's all about.
So the first report that we put out a couple of months ago was really where does Alberta stand? So just better understanding, where are we doing well? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? How do we compare to other jurisdictions? The 2 reports, however, that we released today as a part of Chapter 2 is really what are we up against? So it's taking a broader picture, looking at, what's happening globally, what are the trends and forces that are going to affect Alberta over the next decade, and starting to think about, how does Alberta actually need to change policy, change our focus and priorities to respond well to these major global forces. And so just real briefly, there are kind of 2 components of that work. So the one is a big picture overview by the Business Council of Alberta internally, looking at, what are we outlined 4 major global forces that are going to have a major impact on our lives in Alberta. And then kind of this separate report was a collaboration with the Canada West Foundation, which looks at the changing nature of trade and kind of the geopolitical relationships and changing nature of issues with China and the US, and kind of all the things that you can imagine would be wrapped up with that.
So as we look forward, in terms of those 2 reports released today, what are the key things that we can take from those reports that will put us on the right path going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one big thing that comes through from the internal BCA report is just how much differently we need to think about economic growth and prosperity and opportunity going forward than what we have in the past. I think some of the big changes that we identified, for instance, it's economic value and growth moving forward is less about tangible assets or things like physical capital or machinery and equipment, and it's more about new ideas and innovation and having the kinds of people that are skilled and can make a new idea into a reality that improves a business model, say. So I think that's one of the big changes. Another big change that we're all very aware of is the importance of sustainability and the focus on climate change and the opportunity of really getting it right in this space, especially in Alberta. I think that the returns are just huge for us. Another big change that I think we need to think about in Alberta is that, previously we were able to think about high-paying jobs and economic opportunity separate from education, right? You could come to Alberta and get a job paying maybe 6 figures, right, without necessarily any post-secondary education. That's just not the trend moving forward. And so I think we're going to have to think a lot more about education, about workforce development and training over the next decade than we ever have in our past. So those are just a couple of things, but as well, Canada West highlights a number of really important things. Even just related to how different jurisdictions are responding to climate change and climate action that we need to be really cognizant of. For instance, our partnership with the US, we've always thought of as a friendly trading partner, right, with no issues ultimately. Yeah. But now ultimately we're at risk of being closed out of certain markets because of certain new regulations and restrictions that they're putting in place in the name of climate change. And so I think it really underscores how much we need to be very cognizant and kind of ahead of the curve of what's happening and where the ball is moving so that Alberta won't be locked out of those opportunities.
All right. And so what's next for the project?
Yeah, so the next part of the project is our chapter 3, which is delving a little bit deeper into what Albertans want to see. So like, what is their vision for Alberta over the next decade? So we interviewed literally thousands of Albertans. We also did focus groups all across the province. And so we're going to be sharing some of our key findings on that. And then the next stage after that will be actually the final report itself.
And what are the timing on both of those?
Yeah, so the chapter 3 will be coming out over the next month, and then in about 2 months we'll have the final big report. And then our hope is we don't want to just publish the report and end there, but there will be a lot of engagement and follow through and making sure that that really gains traction beyond that. This is something that, we imagine it's going to define our future work from here and our priorities at the Business Council. And we'll also be kind of tracking our progress, right, across different metrics in that report. So this is really meant to be a living, breathing project that doesn't just, go away after this year.
All right, super. Thanks, Alicia, for joining us today.
Thanks, Mario.
All right, that was Alicia Planincic, who is the Manager of Policy and Economics for the Business Council of Alberta. This has been Taking Care of Business. I'm Mario Toneguzzi. Thanks for joining us today.